Good morning.
Hi.
صباحك يا جماعة.
How are you, Maureen? How are you?
كويسة، ازيك يا؟
Great. Everything is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Misha, I'm admitting all the people right now.
And let's see if Liliana, do we have the complement? Okay, Manuel is there. Is Eric there?
Excuse me, I'm
Because-
sorry.
We just want to make sure that our team is
Mr.
there.
Eric is not, yeah, Mr. Eric is missing.
So let us try to reach out to him.
صباح الخير دكتورة نجلة زي حضرتك من البنك المركزي.
Dr. Nagla Sabak here. Hey, I'm good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Nagla, you are mute? مش ممكن.
طيب طالما الناس عشان بس الساعة 10 ودقيقة وهنحتاج نبتدي as soon as possible. خلينا نتكلم نقول هنعمل ايه النهارده. احنا we'll start at 10:05 وان شاء الله نخلص 11 sharp. So I'll have to say it in both Arabic and in English. That we need to be precise in time, the exact time as per the agenda. لازم نبقى بالظبط زي الوقت المطلوب ما نزيدش عنه عشان لازم نخلص الساعة 11 وعندنا حاجات حلوة كتير يعني فمحتاجين نسمعهم كلهم. وأول حاجة هنبتدي أول حاجة هيبقى الأستاذ إريك بالإنجليزي زي ما يا جماعة بنعمل كل مرة إن شاء الله. اللي عنده أي أسئلة بنحطها في الشات عشان نقدر نسألها وفي نفس الوقت في آخر 10 دقايق بنفتح لو حد عايز يعني يشارك في أي حاجة. هنبتدي الساعة 10:05 المفروض مع الأستاذ إريك أول ما يجي. بعد كده عندنا الأستاذ إيمانويل أسياك ده القائم بأعمال المدير التنفيذي لإدارة فيدا بالبنك الأفريقي للاستيراد والتصدير. وبعد كده عندنا عرض تقديم من برنامج رابس ده من البنك المركزي المصري الدكتورة نجلاء النزهي مستشار المحافظ البنك المركزي لشؤون أفريقيا والأستاذ علاء صقر مدير عام الإدارة العامة للعمليات الخارجية بالبنك المركزي المصري. we'll start in 2 minutes once Mr. Eric
and
shows up.
We have Abdallah from our side too.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, if it's 10:05, we'll start immediately once in 2 minutes.
Lamia, confirm if Abdallah is there.
I'm calling him, Miss Maureen.
Wow. Allah, if I don't know if Eric has joined.
I'm not sure. I'm looking for him.
Madam, I joined.
No.
Oh, okay.
10.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
I joined at 10.
Thank you
I don't
very
know
much.
how you're looking.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Mr. Eric, you'll start in 2 minutes.
Good morning. Good morning, Ala.
Good morning,
Okay.
sir. You will start in 2 minutes. You have 15 minutes. So, because it's very, very tight this morning. So let's make it interesting for everybody and give them as much information as we can. If somebody needs to translate something, I'll be happy to do so. In 1 minute, you can start. Would be my pleasure.
We also have Abdallah who will also assist in the translation as well.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, you have 15 minutes. You can have as many people as you want.
Thank you.
So are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, looks nice.
Yeah, you can see your screen
Okay.
very well.
All right. So thank you very much, dear friends, dear colleagues, partners. It's an opportunity to be with you today. We have to use our time efficiently so that we give opportunity for the rest of the presenters. So we'll have a very 1-minute overview on Afrexim Bank. And then we will also look at some of the strategic initiatives the bank is doing to support trade finance, like exporters like yourselves. Maybe I should put on my video so that you can see me. And then some programs and facilities that can help exporters.
This is beautiful. We can see your beautiful face.
Yeah, thank you. And then Afreximbank credit approval process, so that when you apply, you'll be able to understand what approval process we will have in place. All right. Is it moving? Oh, what happened? Okay. So very quickly, Afreximbank is a multilateral trade finance development institution. So we are multilateral. We're a trade finance bank for Africa, and set up some 28 years ago by African states to promote, facilitate, finance intra and extra African trade. So the bank has a legal status of a multilateral international financial institutions with 4 classes of shares. Class A is African states, Class B, African institutions. A lot of banks in Egypt are shareholders of Afreximbank. You have the Ministry of Finance, who represent the government of Egypt, is a shareholder. The Central Bank of Egypt is also a shareholder. And then you have financial institutions in Egypt, like Bank Smith, Bank UK, National Bank of Egypt. These are also shareholders. So you see the states, the financial institution, the Central Bank, and the Ministry of Finance, representing the government of Egypt, belong to Class A, while the commercial banks belong to Class B. And we have other institutions like the Dangote Group, like other financial institutions in Nigeria, Class B. And then Class C's are international institutions like Standard Chartered Bank, like Citibank, like India Exim, like other international financial institutions or institutions. And then Class D was recently listed on the Mauritius Stock Exchange in 2018, which is now open to any other shareholder. Today, we have 51 member countries out of the 55, according to the AU. So the only members that are not, the only countries that are not members of Afreximbank are Algeria, Libya, Somalia, and Western Sahara. The rest are member countries, so we can do business. We have regional offices headquartered in Cairo, Egypt, and also covers the whole continent as well as North Africa. And we have regional offices in Abuja, Nigeria, to cover Anglophone West Africa, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, to cover Francophone West Africa, Harare, Zimbabwe, to cover Southern African countries, and Kampala, Uganda, to cover Eastern African countries. Very soon, Cameroon office in Yaoundé, which will mean to cover Central African countries, including DRC, will be open. We are rated A- by GCR, Baa1 by Moody's, and BBB- by Fitch, all 3 with stable outlook. So we are both investment grade. Afreximbank operates on a 5-year strategic plan, and the first was done at the initial stage when the bank started. We are now running and completing our 5th strategic plan, which we call Impact 2021 Africa Transform. That runs from 2017 to 2021. So from 2022, we're going to have a different plan. So this presents the various shares which I've already explained and the percentages according to Class A, Class B, Class C. One point to mention here is that Afreximbank is a development financial institution formed on a PPP basis, public-private partnership. So it's a very unique institution that is a DFI but operates on a profit motive. That's why we don't typically extend concessionary loans. Our loans are commercially priced and all our facilities. But because of the developmental mandate we have, we always take into consideration the development, for instance, like the exports that the Export Council is doing. We can then take that in consideration to provide facilities that are going to support the export activities. Our strategic plan is hinged on 4 pillars: intra-African trade, that's trade among African countries. Our arrowhead is the main pillar. Industrialization and export development is another one. For us to be able to trade as African countries, we need to produce the goods and services that need to be traded. That's why industrialization and export development is very important. Trade finance leadership, we need to step in and support the financial sector of African countries by providing products like the Afreximbank Trade Finance Facilitation Facility, which we call AFTRA, which is aimed to onboard 550 banks to be able to confirm letters of credit for your exports, confirm issue irrevocable reimbursement undertaking, avalize promissory note bills, and issue various guarantees under this product to support the financial sector and to support exporters like yourself. And then the last pillar is financial soundness and performance. It's more internal. For us to be able to do those three things: intra-African trade, industrialization, export development, trade finance leadership, we need to be financially sound. Our prudential ratios need to be strong. Our profitability need to be strong. That's why pillar number 4 is very, very important. We intervene in 3 broad ways. We offer credits, which means we do trade finance and project finance. We also issue various guarantees, which we call risk-bearing activities. And we also do advisory and capital market, which means we can take countries or companies into the Eurobond market for issuance of bond into the capital market. For us to be able to do the financing, the loan, the guarantees, and the rest, we also do trade enabling initiative. Right now, Afreximbank, working with the AAU and Africa CDC and the UNECA, have put in place the Afreximbank Africa Medical Supply Platform, which is what is being used now by all the African countries to order, through the platform, they order COVID-related supplies like PPEs, like ventilators. Now, countries are using it, including Egypt, to order vaccines, all the vaccines for the COVID-19. It's a platform that is built by Africa. So you see, there's some trade because Africa needs to come together to be able to order because of vaccine nationalization, where the rich countries are buying for themselves. That's why the initiative was put in place so that Africa can come together and order as one and then distribute to the various countries based on their orders. So the AMSP platform is helping for that purpose. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is a system that is being piloted now in the West Africa Monetary Zone, including Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Guinea, to facilitate payments, trade among African countries in local currencies. So if an exporter in Egypt is selling to Nigeria, the exporter will receive Egyptian pounds, the buyer in Nigeria will pay you in Naira. And Afreximbank, working with the various central banks, will provide a clearing and settlement. That is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. It's going to be launched sometime first week of June in these countries that I mentioned, and then it will roll out the whole continent. So it helps for Africa to be able to trade in their own currencies. So instead of you trying to use EGP to buy dollars to then buy something in another country, which will then be translated in the currency of that country, you just pay with EGP and you don't worry about it. The seller receives the local currency, and Afreximbank does the clearing and settlement. The MANSA, which is why we're here today, is a prerequisite in a way to accessing PAPS. For you to be able to access Pan-African Payment and Settlement System as a corporate, as a bank, as an SME, you need to be MANSA verified. MANSA verified means that you provided your KYC information is verified by the regulator of your sector. If it's a bank, it will be the central bank, and a MANSA ID is then issued to you, which you then use to subscribe and onboard to Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So all of these, MANSA and Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, all these are done under the auspices of the African Union in order to facilitate trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Mr. Eric, I need to interrupt you to get some information because people might get lost. So what I need you to do is the following. Can you give us examples of any Egyptian company that got benefits from the program? Just to give examples, how would Egyptian companies get benefits out of this? Can you give any example of what we can ask for and we can apply for?
Yes, I am coming to that. These ones are trade enabling initiatives that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, because we had last week we had the Mansa webinar last week, so people, yes, I think they got to know the Mansa. We already discussed it.
Okay, all right. So let me move to that very quickly so that you can get precise things that you can apply for and benefit from. So okay, Mansa, you're already very familiar with it, and as I said, we have the trade information and trade regulation, the TIP and the TRIP, which is a portal that is being developed for all trade information about various things that are in various African countries. Then we have the Interstate Collaborative Transit Guarantee, which will allow, say, somebody shipping a product from Cape Town to Cairo with one instrument, instead of you being issued country by country. It will save time, it will save money. These are the initiatives that Afreximbank is also championing to facilitate trading, free trading under the AFCFTA. And finally, we have the AFCFTA adjustment facility, which will help to caution, because when government will open up their borders for trade, they will lose revenues, import revenues. But this facility will allow the government to take the facility and find other revenues to replace the lost revenue once they open up the borders. So these are the soft infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, since we have only 3 minutes left, can we jump? Yeah, we need to jump to the what companies can ask for.
They want to know which companies in Egypt have benefited from our facilities. For instance,
exactly.
Elswidi, we opened the gates to Africa for Elswidi, so they have their presence everywhere. And of course, the PPE, you know, the companies that you are giving the facilities to in Egypt. So that is what they want to know. Those companies
we have companies like SUD that Arab contractors, the rest, a lot of companies in Egypt who are benefiting. Even those who import,
in which way they got benefits? I mean,
yes,
how did they get the benefit? Yeah,
that's what we have. That's what we have on the screen. If we are interrupting a lot, then we'll get mixed up, and then we'll not be able to point to. So if you see, there are various programs and facilities that we have on the screen: note purchase facilities, direct financing, line of credit to financial institutions. Most financial institutions like Bank Mills, Bank Duquesne, all of this, they benefit from facilities. I work with Abdallah on an extend facilities, because Afreximbank believes that you may not be able to touch even the SMEs, all the SMEs. Sometimes we lend through a commercial bank so that they can support SMEs that are not big enough to benefit from the facility. And then we also lend to the corporate. So these are some of the facilities: a line of credit, a term loan, and then a note purchase facility, a short-term structured trade finance. For instance, for an exporter, if you are exporting to a country, say Europe or China and the rest, you approach Afreximbank and say, my export cycle, I need working capital facility, I need a pre-export facility, which is number, if you can see my cursor, a pre-export facility, which is a facility that you can benefit from and then produce the product and services that you want to export. So we will look at your financial standing, we'll look at who are your off-takers, who are those that you're selling to, and then we'll form a structure in a way that those off-takers can assign payments to come through us, and then so that it will liquidate the exposure once it cycles out. So you take the money from Afreximbank, you produce the services, you sell, and then you receive the payment through us. We take what belongs to Afreximbank and the balance is released to you, and the cycle is repeated. So this is a typical pre-export or post-shipment facility that any exporter can approach Afreximbank for us to provide. We can also provide guarantees. For instance, if you want to export or you want to buy raw materials, because for you to export something, you need to produce it. So you need a guarantee to your supplier to say you will pay. So Afreximbank can issue a guarantee that will give comfort to that supplier to be able to provide you the raw materials, you produce, you sell, and you pay back. In the event where you don't pay, then they can call on the Afreximbank guarantees to be able to repay themselves, and then you continue doing the business. So I think let me stop here in the interest of time. If there are any specific questions, I can take one.
Yeah, if let me say it in Arabic so people would, if somebody doesn't speak English.
Yes.
لو في أي أسئلة ليه، هو طبعا الموضوع أنا شايف إن هو ممكن ياخد أكتر من ال 15 minutes اللي احنا اتكلمنا عليهم عشان نخش فيها بالتفصيل. فبالتالي اللي عنده أسئلة نمرة واحد طبعا يحطها في الشات فوق على اليمين، يا إما هنحط طبعا أسماء البنك الكونتاكت بيرسون عشان يبقى في اتصال مباشر من الشركات لو حد عايز يسأل على سؤال مباشر. أنا أعتقد في الأستاذ عبد الله معانا بيتكلم عربي، فالأستاذ عبد الله لو في أي حاجة حضرتك بس عشان في آخر 10 minutes نقدر نرد على بقية الناس ونفضل as per schedule because it's 10:21. We need to move to FIDA. الأستاذ إيمانويل أسياك. Can we start?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. Thank you, sir.
Anyway, please don't go because of questions that will come up.
Yeah, we'll have questions in the last 10 minutes. So let's move to Mr. Emmanuel.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I hope you can see me out there, and then I'm going to pull up my presentation as well. Great. So I try and make this as quickly as possible. It's a very short presentation, so I'm very sure we'll move through it.
Yeah, you have 10 minutes. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. So it's my pleasure to meet everyone on this call today, and I'll be walking you through our short FEDA presentation. Please let me know if you now can see my screen.
Yeah, just you, not your screen.
I
believe.
Screen
Yeah, I believe we need to.
Let me try that again. Well, just 1 minute, please. Are you able to see now?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here to walk you through the FEDA presentation. FEDA is the Fund for Export Development in Africa. It's essentially an equity investing business of Afreximbank. So the bank, as you know, has been busy on the debt side in supporting businesses in Africa, and you're probably well familiar with Afreximbank. But then the bank did a research in the market to find out what was happening on the equity side. And as you know, every business needs a combination of debt and equity. And indeed, you may not be able to access debt if you don't have enough equity on your balance sheet. So we were established to support businesses by investing equity and quasi-equity instrument, which means we can invest pure equity. We can also put in investments that are not purely in equity form. So I'll just go straight on to talk about who we are. I've started that. So we are essentially an equity firm sponsored by Afreximbank, and we're putting developmental equity. So in other words, we are not in here for just return. We are here to partner with people who are like-minded with ourselves, businesses who are like-minded with ourselves, to support them, particularly along 3 lines. Number 1 is to support businesses that are involved in intra-African trade. And I'll speak to this much more later. The second is to support businesses that are involved in value addition. Again, I'll speak to that subsequently. And then the third is to support industrialization on the continent. In terms of vision, we are looking to transform the trade space structurally, particularly because we are seeing imbalances from the nature of capital that is coming, from outside the continent into the continent. But we want to redirect efforts specifically, just like the bank, under its mandate on the trade area, to do some on the equity side. Now, I spoke about the first reason FEDA is established, which is the whole thing around supporting the growth in intra-African trade. So if you look at the slide to your left, you can see what the intra-regional trade number for Africa is, which means Africa is doing very little with itself. when you compare that to, the Americas is in the mid-50s. Southeast Asia is about 60%, and then intra-European Union is about 70%. So you see, Africa trades more with outside the continent as opposed to dealing with itself. And part of the reason, that African Continental Free Trade Area agreement was signed and launched is to address this problem, because we can do more with ourselves. We can, stop some of the value leakages we are seeing from a capital flight perspective going out of Africa by just dealing with African countries. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, what you see there, speaks to the second point, which I said, value addition. So Africa has been known to exporting raw commodities. That's been the major focus. And with the process of exporting raw commodities, what happens with that is the fact that you get paid little because you're exporting raw commodities. And then by the time value is added, an example is cocoa. So you export at best maybe cocoa paste or cocoa liquor, and then you get chocolate back. What you get back is priced a lot higher because of value addition. So we want to support the improvement in the quality of exports. So basically, businesses that can do more, that can add value to export. And I mean, everyone probably on this call understands the implication of not adding value to your export. One of them is the implication for balance of trade, balance of payment. And of course, that translates to currency challenges. Volatility in the commodities market just keeps affecting African economies. So that's one of the things we're here to solve. So if there's a business that is trading across Africa, we support that business. If there's a business that is adding value, exporting outside of Africa, some improved quality of export, we also support such businesses. Now, we're a new entity because the question will come at some point, what have we done so far? But I'm going to speak to that. But when you think about our business as FEDA, you think about us not just from an equity, bringing capital to work with partners like yourselves, but think about us as parties who will bring capacity to add to your business. So in other words, we will help you provide market access. My colleague Eric talked about its support that has been provided to help companies like Arab Contractors, to support these businesses like the Swedish Group, move into the rest of Africa. We are also going to do that. And indeed, we've had conversations, even in this short time, with a few companies under some confidentiality, because those haven't been announced, because we haven't progressed to that level yet. But there's some conversation that we're bringing significant value add. And we are backed by a strong sponsor in Afreximbank, who is very committed to the continent, because you Africans own Afreximbank. Because of that, Afreximbank is not investing equity because it's looking for returns per se, but it's investing equity because there are opportunities to help Africa, because if we do not solve our problems, we keep having the challenges that Africa has been having so far. So that's part of why we're established here. So this slide speaks a lot to the benefits, that we bring to parties who we invest in, which are the investees, and then investors, who are the parties that would support us, because we would certainly go out to raise capital beyond what we have as what Afreximbank has provided, and I'll speak more to what we have, but subsequently we raise capital. So this slide speaks to what value people who bring money would get, and parties that we're investing in would get. My next slide then gets into the sectors. So what sectors do we support? The easy way to think about sectors we support is to say we invest in every sector. So think about, what don't we invest in? There are 3 sectors specifically that we currently don't invest in. Number 1 is power. The second one is oil and gas. The third one is mining. And the reason that we don't currently invest in those 3 is that they don't immediately or readily lend themselves to the objectives of FEDA. So what we do is, in any sector, whether you pick logistics, whether you pick fast-moving consumer goods.
Mr. Emmanuel, can I interrupt you for 1 second to ask people if they need me to translate what you're saying? If somebody please write in the chat if you need me to translate, or everybody is okay with the English. It doesn't matter, I can just translate for Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Mr. El-Wakil. So,
yeah, if somebody, okay, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. So if whatever sector we're looking at, we just ask ourselves 2 questions. One is this company or is this investment going to help the growth in intra-African trade, or is it going to help with value-added export outside of Africa? That's what we use to test. Now, this is my last slide, and then I will wait for questions. So right now, just speaking specifically, where are we? So for the equity investment, we have $100 million that the bank has given us. And the objective of this is for us to support, SMEs and also growing corporates. And we invest this in equity and quasi-equity instrument, meaning we can put pure equity or we can put mezzanine, some structured instruments that will meet the objectives of ourselves and the partners that we're working with. Number two, currently we focus principally on growth opportunities, which means, of course, buyout is where you put money in a company and the shareholders take the money out. That certainly is within what we can do, but our focus currently is really to put money and see our money go into the business for growth reasons. And how much would we invest currently? We will invest anything between $5 million and $20 million per ticket size of an investment. And we would ask for a maximum of 49% equity of the company, depending on the valuation of the company. So it can be 10%, 15, 20, 30, or 49. Can be any of those numbers, provided it's not majority. We like to leave majority to the promoters of the companies. Then finally, we are investing across all Afreximbank states, member states, so which means the 51 countries, like my colleague spoke about. We can invest in any of those places. And then we invest for, say, 17 to 10 years period, and we spend most of the time working with the company to grow the business. But for every investment we make, or what we ask for to get involved in the business is to sit on the board. So we get a board seat or a relative number, depending on what our shareholding is. And the reason
okay, so if somebody, Mr. Emmanuel, if somebody wants a fund, how much is it can they get as a company, and what would be the requirements, where to apply to?
Okay, so you can get anything between $5 million and $20 million currently.
Okay.
Again, depending on your need and the size of your company and what you're looking to do with the money. And how do you get it? You basically engage with us. You send us an email. You have a teaser that basically summarizes the opportunity. We look at it. If we like it, we sign an NDA with you. And then we ask for specific information, which would include the business plan.
You must be Mansa verified, Emmanuel.
Oh, yeah, that's where I should have done.
Okay, yeah. I mean, do you have a set limits for each company? Let's say a company wants a 1 million or 10 million. What would be your, limits for that? Do they need to?
So there's no set limit. So like I said, it's 5 million minimum and 20 million maximum. So which means if you need, again, it depends on the size of your company. If you need, if a $5 million will give us 100% of the company, then that means we may not be able to do that investment. So if we value your business and we find that our 5 million can give us 49, that's fine.
Yeah, for the food companies in Egypt, did you have any experience with any of us?
Okay, so not exactly yet. So because we are new, we're actually like 18 months old. We just got the team in last year, but we've looked at a few businesses in Egypt, but they are more around manufacturing. We haven't done food yet. So if there's a food processing business that is having some good level of revenues and some good level of EBITDA, maybe 3 years of profitability, and has operated for at least 5 years, and we can see the financials, we'll do the numbers, we'll run analysis, and then we can engage with the promoters and management and agree what exact valuation is based on what is acceptable to both parties. And then we determine what our either 5, 10, or 15 or $20 million investment in the company will give us as a stake. But like I said,
can we have the data? Why do you think Egyptians are not using it yet as much as you would like to?
So like I said, we just started a business. We put the team together just in 2020. And we're currently looking at business opportunities. We've reviewed a number of opportunities in Egypt. We've looked at a personal care business that we didn't invest in. We've looked at many other ones. We've looked at some manufacturing ones. We're still looking at another one now, that we're working with other investors in Africa.
How would people, I'm sorry for interrupting you again, how would people contact you? Because we have a lot of people that might be interested in contacting you directly. If it's possible for us to have all the contacts available in the chat, then the Federation will send this data. Is it possible to have this presentation?
Absolutely.
Please send it by email so we can send it to our members and for the people who attended this webinar, because we're running again out of time and we need to start with the reps program. Which will be in Arabic. If you can stay for the last 10 minutes, maybe somebody would have a question. I would appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. I'm sorry for the short time that we had, but we have to run. Thank you, sir.
So much. So the contact details are here and it will be in the slide. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Okay. عندنا دلوقتي العرض التقديمي من برنامج رابس من البنك المركزي المصري. فهنتكلم دلوقتي معانا الدكتور نجلاء اعتقد. اتفضلي يا فندم، حضرتك عندك الشاشه.
اوكي، صباح الخير.
صباح النور.
طبعا انا بتمنى للجميع فرص. انا نظام الريبس ده انا مش عايزه اطول علشان الوقت محدد. هو نظام قائم بالفعل. النظام ده بيعمل على ان هو بيحفظ لك مدفوعاتك. بمعنى ايه؟ احنا عندنا تجمع الكوميسا 21 دولة. ال 21 دولة في 9 منهم ابتدوا يتجمعوا في نظام معين. النظام ده كل بنك مركزي من الدول ال9 اللي هم موجودين، اللي انا هحددهم دلوقتي لحضراتكم، اللي هي مصر، الكونغو الديمقراطية، كينيا، ملاوي، موريشيوس، رواندا، اسواتيني اللي هي كانت سوازيلاند، اوغندا، زامبيا. طبعا لو حضراتكم لاحظتوا ان كينيا واوغندا وموريشيوس دي اكتر الدول اللي في تعامل تجاري بيننا وبينها. ايه الموضوع بالظبط؟ ان كل بنك من البنوك المركزيه اللي انا قلت لهم ذكرتهم لحضراتكم فاتح حساب بالدولار وباليورو في البنك المركزي بتاع موريشيوس اللي هي بتتواجد فيها غرفه المخاصه موريشيوس. بمعنى حضراتكم ايه؟ لو حضرتك عايز تستورد حاجه من كينيا، احنا بنقول النظام ده بيأمن لك ان انت تحصل على مدفوعاتك بطريقه امنه. لو عايز تستورد من كينيا، اللي بيحصل ان البنك التجاري بتاعك والبنك التجاري بتاع المصدر بيبتدوا يعملوا الاجراءات التجاريه الخاصه بعمليه التصدير. وانس العمليه تمت من الناحيه التجاريه وابتدينا في مرحله الدفع، البنك التجاري الكيني بيبلغ البنك المركزي الكيني بيقول له ان في عمليه تصدير حصلت لمصر. والبنك التجاري المصري بيبلغ البنك المركزي المصري بيقول له ان في فعلا عمليه تجاريه حصلت مكتمله بيننا وبين كينيا. في الحالة دي البنوك المركزية من الطرفين بتبلغ غرفة المقاصة في موريشيوس بحيث ان هي تخصم من حساب البنك المركزي المصري سواء بالدولار او باليورو، وتضيف على الحساب البنك المركزي في كينيا. وبالتالي كل بنك من البنوك المركزية يتم إيداع هذه الصفقة، ثمن الصفقة في البنوك التجارية وبتحصل عليها. ليه إحنا بنقول كده؟ أو ليه النظام ده اتعمل كده؟ النظام ده فيه مزايا كتير. أولاً كان الأول بيحصل إن البنك المصدر بيكلم المراسل بيكلم مراسل، لفة كبيرة جداً بتاخد لها على الأقل بتاع 10-15 يوم. النظام ده T+1 يعني بتتم العملية المدفوعات في الوقت الزمني بالإضافة اليوم أو في نفس الوقت الزمني. ادي حاجه الثانيه، المراسلات اللي بتتم بيننا وبين عدد الدول مع بعض دي كلها فيز بتتحسب على المصدر والمستورد. لا، اللي احنا بنعمله ان على طول مباشرة مفيش فيز، بنخفض التكلفة. الحد الأقصى للتكلفة من خلال العملية دي هي $65، فبالتالي انت بتعمل عملية كذا مليون دولار بتدفع $65 او ما يعادلها، والحد الادنى $4. فبالتالي انا عندي نوع من التوفير، توفير في الوقت، توفير في الفيز اللي انا بتحملها. الاهم من كده ان انا بضمن لك ان انت فلوسك بتاخدها. احنا عندنا البنوك المساهمه في النظام ده. بالنسبه للبنوك المصريه، هي كافه البنوك المصريه مشتركه في النظام ده، بس حضرتك بتقول ان انا عايز يتم من خلال نظام الريبس. في عندنا النظام ده بيشمل 189 بنك، يعني احنا عندنا بنوك مصر كلها، بنوك كينيا كلها، ودي عدد البنوك اللي هي المشتركه في النظام. فحضرتك بتضمن فلوسك من خلال الدول دي ومن خلال البنوك دي، بحيث ان انت ضمان الدفع ليك مؤمن من البنوك المركزيه بحسابات مفتوحه مسبقا، بتوفير للوقت والمجهود. الحاجه الثانيه، احنا معانا الاستاذ علاء صقر برضو، اذا كان حضرتك يضيف حاجه، وهو مسؤول عن عمليه التنفيذ لو كان في اسئله خاصه عن البنوك او حاجه. اتفضل يا استاذ علاء. استاذ علاء
معاك يا دكتوره نجلاء. ازاي صحتك؟ السلام عليكم، اهلا بكم جميعا. كده الصوت واضح؟
واضح.
تمام، اهلا بكم جميعا. يسعدنا طبعا وشرفنا ان احنا نكون معاكم في الاجتماع دوت. وطبعا زي ما الدكتوره نجلاء وضحت، الدول المشتركه واحنا دورنا كبنوك بيبتدي بعد ما الدور من الناحيه التجاريه بيتم بين المستورد هنا والمصدر هناك. تمام. بيبدا دور البنوك من هنا. زي ما الدكتوره نجلاء وضحت ان العمليه بتبقى حلاوتها او ان احسن ما فيها ان هي موضحه بالنسبه للبنوك ان الفلوس مضمونه من هنا ومن هنا، على اساس ان اللي بيقوم بالعمليه في الاخر هي بنوك مركزيه مع بعضيها. وهنا في مصر احنا بالنسبه لنا البنك المركزي طبعا هو المسؤول عن الموضوع ده بالاشتراك مع 39 بنك. بمعنى ان زي ما الدكتوره نجلاء وضحت ان لو في عمليه تبادل تجاري بيننا مثلا وبين كينيا، العمليه دي العميل اللي في كينيا حسابه في البنك التجاري الكيني، والعميل اللي في مصر حسابه البنك الاهلي المصري. هنا بتتم العمليه في الاخر عن طريق البنك المركزي، ان البنك الكيني بيدفع، البنك التجاري الكيني بيدفع للبنك الكيني، بيضيفوا لحسابنا بنك موريشيوس هناك. البنك المركزي المصري بياخد منه فلوس في النهايه. فعمليه الضمان هنا هي مضمونه بنسبه 100%، لان اللي بيضمنها البنوك المركزيه في الدول دي مش البنوك التجاريه. بعلما بان حتى البنوك التجاريه اللي مشتركه في الدول ديت لابد ان هي تكون بنوك معتمده وبنوك رسميه وبنوك تتعامل تحت مظله البنك المركزي لهذه الدول. فالعمليات بتتم بسهوله ويسر وسريعه. دي رقم واحد. رقم اثنين وده الاهم، العمولات برضو قليله شويه، ما بتعتبرش زي العمولات بتاعت التحويلات العاديه. السرعه طبعا في التحويل، ضمان ان المبالغ وصلت بالكامل، تعتبر وصلت كامله بدون اي مصاريف، وحتى لو في مصاريف زي ما قلنا بتبقى مصاريف صغيره جدا جدا او قليله جدا جدا جدا. العمليه مضمونه من قبل البنوك المركزيه، وقد تكون مع التعاملات اللي بتتم في افريقيا الفترات اللي فاتت ديت احسن حاجه بتتم ان هي بتتم عن طريق البنك المركزي. فالبنك المركزي هو ضامن للعمليات التحويلات سواء داخل الورده او سواء. لو في اي اسئله احنا تحت امركم.
علاء بيه، لو حد يعني مثلا عندنا عميل في دوله افريقيه في اوغندا ومحتاج ان هو يبعت الفلوس، هل لازم نقول له يبعت الفلوس بالطريقه اللي حضرتك بالراب السيستم، ولا هي اوتوماتيك بتبقى كده؟
لو هو مشترك.
لو هو مشترك.
لو هم مشتركين في الريبس اللي يبعتها على الطريقه دي الافضل. احنا ما بنقولوش، يعني احنا يعني مش احنا اللي بنقول، هو اللي مشترك بيقول لك انا مشترك عن طريق الريبس. يعني احنا خلاص من هنا
كشركة
مثلا
ولا
علاء
كبنك؟
هستورد من واحد في كينيا شاي، فانا عشان اضمن فلوسي بقول له انت هتحول لي الفلوس دي عن طريق الريبس، عن طريق نظام الريبس
تمام
البنكي. فهو
تمام.
يعني ده بيبقى اتفاق بين الاثنين وبين بعضيهم. انما هم بيعملوا تحويلات مباشره، هي شغاله التحويلات المباشره بينهم وبين بعضهم. يبعت البنك التجاري الكيني يبعت لحسابه في البنك الاهلي المصري هنا يبعت، مفيش مشكله، مش عن طريق الريبس لو هو عايز. انما هي ما بقتش مش اشتراط، ده اللي انا يمكن فهمته من سؤال سعادتك، مش اشتراط ان هو يشترط ان هو يحول عن طريق الريبس، لا لسه لغايه دلوقتي مفيش اشتراطات رسميه في حاجه بالشكل ده. ممكن الدكتور اللي
فلازم
يرد عليك.
لازم اطلب من العميل ان هو يعمل لي الموضوع ده وبيجي لي الحساب بالدولار. عشان البرنامج اللي قبل حضرتك كان في حته مهمه جدا، وهي انه ممكن حد يدفع مثلا في نيجيريا. كان سؤال موجود، لو هيدفع لي في نيجيريا بالنايرة وبعد كده انا هستلمهم هنا بالجنيه، الدعم بيقول ان انا لازم استلم الفلوس بالدولار عشان الشركات تستحق الدعم. وده سؤال مهم جدا، محتاجين يعني نعرف رد فيه. لو انا الراجل ده بعت لي بالجنيه واستلمته، هل هينفع ساعتها؟ هتبقى شروط الدعم لسه متاحة بالنسبة لي؟
هو لو سمحت لي في
اتفضلي يا فندم.
هو بالنسبه لنظام البابس اللي هو افري اكزم اتكلم عنه، هو لسه ما اتفعلش، يعني لسه مصر ما اشتركتش فيه. فالنظام اللي اوريدي شغال وبيشتغل هو النظام بتاعنا احنا، اللي هو بالدولار وباليورو، تاخدها بالدولار او باليورو، وبعد كده هيتم اضافه عملات تانية، وليك الحق ان انت بتاخد الحاجه بالسعر اللي هو الدولار. النظام ده متفعل من مارس 2017، واحنا عملنا كبنك مركزي اكتر من ورك شوب للمجالس التصديريه والشركات علشان نعرفهم الموضوع ده، عشان نحافظ على فلوسهم، لان احنا عارفين في مشاكل كتيره بتحصل في التحصيل عندهم. فالنظام ده اوريدي موجود وبتاخد بالدولار او باليورو.
تمام يا فندم. اعتقد محتاج ان انا اسالهم بالانجليزي على السؤال دهوت، لانه هم، لو انا مش فاكر كان مين اللي كان، مستر ايمانويل اللي كان بيتكلم ولا مستر اريك، كان حد منهم. مستر اريك or مستر ايمانويل. One of the programs said that we can pay in Naira in Nigeria as an example, then we can receive the money here in Egypt in Egyptian pounds. One of the in our subsidiary program in Egypt, we need to get the money in US dollars to be able to fulfill the requirements to get the subsidy from the government. So I'm not sure if this is feasible for us to ask the government here to accept the money in Egyptian pounds and then ask for the subsidy. So this is, you need to look at it and get back to us if possible. For the Food Council, maybe they can send it back again to the exporters, because this is would be important. حد عنده أسئلة تانية يا جماعة نقدر نسألها للحضور؟
Mr. Allah,
Yes, please.
why we are actually, perhaps, although I'm not an expert in that, if we had had them, they would have been able to talk up to that. But why we are actually using the local currencies is because our different entities, our different African producers have been actually emphasizing on the difficulties they go through to exchange, to get foreign exchange. So perhaps it's like a facilitator whereby you can now trade in your own local currency amongst yourself. So if you are transporting or you are selling goods, you are a supplier to another African country from Egypt, you exchange, you do your business in Egyptian pound, and your other entity at the other end will do his own business in the currency of that country. Then the payment, the Pan-African payment and settlement system will do the transaction. I believe that I'm not to speak for them, because if they were
Maureen.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to add, if I may just add one point, is that we work. The bank works with the central banks of all the countries. So it's before it operates in Egypt, the Central Bank of Egypt would have signed up to that to be able to facilitate the clearing and settlement at the back end. So, but we'll put
Yeah,
them in
this is
contact
something
with
I believe this is something that we need to
Yeah, we'll take it
ask.
to the team.
Yeah, we need to ask about it. That's that's this, as simple as this. We cannot answer it because it's, I believe it's a law or something. So we have to ask about it. We have a lot of other questions regarding how to register from Mr. Rami, how to register with our bank, or using the reps. Please, how can we participate in the reps? Everybody wants to ask, should we, ask, do we have to be a member, or the bank needs to be a member? And we need to clarify it, دكتورة نجلة بعد إذن حضرتك.
بكل
اتفضلي يا فندم.
بتاعتنا، والاستاذ علاء يصححني لو في خطا، كل البنوك المصريه بتاعتنا مشتركه في النظام ده. هو لما بيروح بيطلب، بيقول انا عايز التحويل يتم من خلال نظام الريبس.
تمام. اسال حضراتكم تاني برضو بخصوص، طب البنك المركزي من يعني من البنوك، يعني ده هو الاساس عندنا في مصر، فبنحتاج نساله اسئله كتيره. هل في اي يعني نقول للشركات المصريه لما بيجي يتعاملوا مع افريقيا، هل في حاجه زي كده مثلا محتاجين ناخد بالنا منها، محتاجين نعملها؟ ايه بعض المشاكل اللي لازم ناخد بالها كمصدرين من بالنسبه للنظام في افريقيا؟ هل في اي حاجه حضرتك؟
اقول لحضرتك على حاجه، احنا بالنسبه للبنوك المركزيه كريبس احنا ما عندناش اي مشكله، لان البنك المركزي المقابل في ال9 دول الافريقيه اللي هي قدام حضراتكم دي هي اللي هتضمن له الدفع. في حاجه ثانيه افري اكزيم عاملها اللي هي المنسى. المنسى دي المفروض ان كل الدول بترفع بيانات على المنصه دي بما فيها البنوك، فدي بتتيح للمصدر او المستورد ان هو يعمل تشيك على البنك ده. يعني احنا كبنوك احنا عندنا في 8 بنوك مشتركين، بنك مصر وبنك قناة السويس وبنك تنمية الصادرات والمصرف المتحد وبلوم بانك. البنوك دي مشتركة ورافعة بياناتها في المنسى. لازم البنوك لما تشترك في المنسى لازم البنك المركزي بتاع الدولة يعمل تصديق على ان البنوك دي واقعة تحت رقابته. فدي من ضمن الحاجات اللي ممكن برضو تساعد المجلس التصديري. واحنا بصراحه يعني بنشكر افري اكزيم بانك على التعاون بتاعه في لما لقينا مشكله في الفيز بتاعه المنسى، لقيناها هو عاليه وابتدى المصدرين يتكلموا عليها. عملنا اتفاق مع المنسى وقلنا لهم هو كان الفيز $10,500 في السنه مع داونلود محدود ب 300 شركه. اتفقنا معاهم ان المجالس التصديريه زي المجلس التصديري للصناعات الغذائيه تابع ل 200 شركه، يبقى ال 10,500 دي هتدفع على ال 200 شركه بما فيهم ان هم يدخلوا ويعملوا استخدام غير محدود وانليميت داونلود. فبالتالي كده وفرنا يعني 10,500 على 400 شركه ولا 200 شركه حوالي حاجه $20 في السنه. فهو لما بيدخل على المنسى ويبص على الشركات برضو دي من الحاجات اللي هي بتفيد ان انت عارف الشركه دي، لان ما فيش شركه بتطلع بياناتها غير لما تبقى في الجهه المسؤوله عنها مصدقه. انما بالنسبه احنا يبص على البنوك يبص عليه، انما بالنسبه لنظام الريبس ال9 دول دول لما المصدر بيطلب ان هي تبقى تتم من خلال الريبس يبقى ان شاء الله ضامن ان الفلوس بتاعته هترجع له بالدولار او باليورو على حسب العمله ما تمت بيها الصفقه، لان الخصم بيحصل من البنوك المركزيه من حساباتها من المنبع في غرفه المقصه بتاعه موريشيوس. فوانس
حضرتك عارفه يا دكتوره كان في حته مهمه قوي حضرتك قلتيها، وهي انه ال $10,000 دهيت للمجلس التصديري. احنا لما عملنا اجتماع الاسبوع اللي فات كان الناس اللي فهمته وانا واحد منهم انه الشركه بتدفع $10,000، فكان مبلغ طبعا عالي. فانا عايز اسال مورين،
واحنا اتفقنا واعتقد مورين would you please
we need to clarify it.
agreement that the council, exporter council, pay 10,000 the fees, Mensa fees, and all the company related to him can enjoy by this money?
Very correct,
Yes.
Dr. Nagla.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So it's not $10,000 per company. It's $10,000, let's say,
No,
per the
because
federation,
the
the
Food
Food
Export
Council.
Council is the group body, so he pays and all its members. The
Yeah,
members
okay.
he has listed, all the members enjoy.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good to clarify.
هي كانت الأول كده، فاحنا لما لان احنا بنعمل يعني بنحاول ندفع التصدير بتاعنا باي بكافه الوسائل، خاصه ان اتفاقيه التجاره الحره تمت، هيتعمل مشاريع كتيره. الصين عامله 33 محور في افريقيا، خطوط بريه بتوصل بعضها، في خطوط سكك حديد دلوقتي بقت تربط ما بين المحيط الهندي والمحيط الهادي، بتمشي من زامبيا لحد انجولا. كل الخطوط دي احنا نستفيد، خطوط بضاعه مش مسافرين، سكك حديديه، فطبعا السكك الحديديه ارخص. ففي مشاريع هائله بتحصل، مش عايزين نستنى لما الفرص بتاعتنا تضيع.
دكتورة نجلة، عندنا سؤال تاني عشان لازم نقفل الساعة 11 خلال الأربع دقايق. هل في أي نوع من أنواع التسهيلات في السداد حتى لما يعني بتكون مضمونة بين الدول؟ لأنه بعض المستوردين من خاصة في المواد الغذائية بيطلبوا تسهيلات سداد، فدايما ده بيتعمل باعتماد، والاعتماد بياخد وقت او كاش ريت دوكيومنتس. وممكن يعني هل في اي حاجه حضرتك ممكن تقترحيها في المجال ده؟
هو حضرتك البنك المركزي او البنوك المركزيه بتيجي دورها بس في ضمان الدفع، انما التسهيلات وما يدور خلال العمليه التجاريه هو علاقه ما بين المصدر والبنك بتاعه. فهل كده صح يا استاذ علاء؟
تمام. تمام يا فندم، خلاص. لا انا بسال بس عشان في اسئله بتجي لنا على الشات، فبنحاول نسال على طبعا المحاضره دي يا جماعه موجوده، او اللي احنا بنعمله ده موجود على الفيسبوك، على الجروب بتاع او البيج بتاعه المجلس التصديري لو حد عايز يشوفها بعد كده. دي حاجه. الحاجه الثانيه، احنا بنعتذر طبعا لضيق الوقت، ان احنا بساعه بنحاول ناخد على قد ما نقدر معلومات، فهي موجوده حطيناها على الشات اللي عايز يشوف الندوه تاني. المجلس هيبعت الكلام ده كله للناس اللي سجلوا، علشان لو حد عايز يعني يشترك فيها. بالنسبه في حد سائل هل السنغال ليس لدينا فرصه فيها؟ لا، جميع الدول الافريقيه حسب منتجك اعتقد ليها. المجلس التصديري طالع بوفد ان شاء الله يوم الاحد الى اوغندا، وفد من الشركات المصريه، وفي نص الشهر طالع تنزانيا، وعندنا 4 دول تانية لنهايه العام. فيعني الناس هتبقى مشغوله جدا السنه دي ان شاء الله. بشكر الجميع وبشكر الدكتورة، بشكر علاء بيه وبشكر مستر إيمانويل. Thank you very much. Mr. Eric, thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody who participated. I'm very sorry for the short time. Sorry for interrupting a lot because we need to get as much information as possible. Hopefully, if anybody has a question, please send it to the Export Council and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you everybody. شكرا يا دكتورة. شكرا لوقت حضرتك يا فندم.
شكرا
جزيلا.
شكرا. Thank you everybody.
مع السلامة.
ألف شكر.
Bye, Dr. Nagla.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.